was. When I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings.
Bob Lazar once spoke of a seamless alien reactor that could bend gravity itself. Most dismissed it as fantasy, but when a mysterious metallic sphere zigzagged through the skies over Buga, Colombia, before crashing into a field, the story took a chilling turn. Witnesses swore it moved in ways no aircraft should. Scientists studying the so-called Buga Sphere reported baffling features: smooth construction without welds, layered interiors.
It's certainly real. It's using an energy field, a type of anti-gravity effect.
I think I have a responsibility to investigate it.
It only weighed 2 kilos when the sphere was handed to me. Today, it weighs 10 kilos.
And strange microspheres hidden inside. Could this be the first physical proof that Lazar's claims were more than legend? Or are we chasing another mystery that defies explanation? Buga's strange orb. On March 2, 2025, the quiet Colombian town of Buga turned into the center of a global mystery. Residents claimed they saw something cutting across the sky that defied easy explanation. It wasn't a plane, and it wasn't a drone. Witnesses described a smooth metallic orb darting back and forth, zigzagging in ways no known aircraft could. Some said it stopped dead in the air, as if frozen in place, then shot forward again with impossible speed, before finally crashing into a field on the outskirts of town. By the time curious locals reached the site, the strange object was waiting, motionless in the dirt. The sphere itself didn't look like wreckage. Instead, it appeared almost too perfect. Shiny, reflective, and eerily symmetrical, the ball seemed more like an engineered device than debris. Enter José Luis Velázquez, a researcher who was among the first to handle it. According to interviews, he immediately noticed something that set the object apart from any known manufactured item. No welds, no seams, no visible joints. The orb was a flawless whole, as if it had been cast in one impossible piece. For engineers and metallurgists, this detail alone raised eyebrows. Even the most advanced aerospace structures typically leave behind telltale marks of machining, welding, or assembly. But the story only grew stranger. Velázquez and his team claimed they performed an X-ray analysis of the object. The scans, according to their statements, revealed a structure that was anything but simple. Inside the sphere were 3 distinct layers of metal-like material, nested one inside the other, with 9 smaller microspheres arranged in a geometric pattern at the center. To Velázquez, it looked nothing like scrap or discarded hardware. He told reporters he had never seen a piece like this in his career. Mainstream outlets, from People magazine to Colombian news channels, amplified his comments, and suddenly the so-called Buga Sphere became a headline story. The global reaction was instant. Social media filled with speculation. Was this proof of alien technology? A downed military device? A hoax? Clips of the orb being handled circulated widely, adding to the intrigue. But with all the attention came an equally loud chorus of skepticism. Physicist Julia Mossbridge, for example, urged a measured response. In interviews, she cautioned that while the object looked unusual, declaring it anomalous without thorough, independent testing was premature. Mossbridge even floated a provocative possibility that the sphere could be a sophisticated art project, deliberately designed to provoke wonder and confusion. Her point was simple: until the object underwent controlled scientific study by independent labs, jumping to conclusions risked misleading the public. She pointed to groups like Harvard's Galileo Project as examples of the kind of team capable of evaluating such artifacts with rigor, rather than sensationalism. And she wasn't wrong. What's missing from this story is as important as what's been reported. There's no peer-reviewed paper documenting the object's composition. no isotopic analysis to determine whether its material matches known terrestrial alloys. No chain of custody proving where exactly the sphere came from or how it was handled after discovery. No raw data from the X-rays or other instruments. All we have are second-hand descriptions and interviews, not the kind of transparent, reproducible evidence science demands. The absence of this data leaves the Buga Sphere balanced on a knife's edge between possibility and exaggeration. Maybe it is extraordinary. Maybe it's just another case like the Betz sphere of 1974, a mysterious metallic ball once thought to be alien before later assessments linked it to mundane industrial origins. Until real evidence is released, the truth remains suspended in uncertainty. If the Buga Sphere truly represents something beyond human technology, then rigorous lab work, composition tests, isotopic ratios, structural analysis will show it. If it's ordinary, the same careful testing will expose the truth. Either way, hype and rumor aren't enough. What comes next, the methodical work of scientists, will matter far more than viral clips or bold headlines. If this orb is extraordinary, consistent lab work will show it. If it's ordinary, careful testing will crack it. Either way, the next steps matter more than the hype. Lazar's reactor. Claim versus physics. To understand why the Buga Sphere has ignited such fierce debate, we need to step back to 1989. That was the year a man named Bob Lazar appeared on television. His face shadowed, his voice altered, claiming he had worked at a secret installation called S4, just south of Area 51 in Nevada. His job, he said, wasn't just maintenance or observation, it was reverse engineering alien spacecraft. At the heart of those craft, according to Lazar, was a reactor no one on Earth could replicate. A device the size of a basketball, seamless and perfect, able to bend gravity itself. Lazar described the reactor in striking detail. A dome about 18 inches across, smooth, with no welds, rivets, or seams. Inside, he claimed, sat a central chip of a material he called Element 115, surrounded by smaller spheres arranged in a geometric pattern. This configuration, he said, allowed the reactor to amplify gravity waves, effectively reducing the mass and inertia of the craft. With its mass lowered, a vehicle could stop on a dime, pivot in midair, or accelerate from 0 to thousands of miles per hour without crushing the occupants inside. For Lazar, this wasn't theory, it was demonstration. He said he had seen it in action. The public response was explosive. Some were enthralled. Others ridiculed him. Scientists at the time dismissed the story as impossible on multiple fronts. First, Element 115 didn't exist on the periodic table. Second, gravity wasn't something you could generate or manipulate with a machine, at least not in any known framework. And third, the idea of seamless metallic construction with hidden internals sounded more like science fiction than engineering. But history complicated things. In 2003, scientists in Russia succeeded in synthesizing element 115 for the first time. It wasn't stable, breaking down in milliseconds, but the fact that it existed at all gave Lazar's story a surprising twist. More than a decade later, in 2016, the element was officially recognized and named moscovium. That doesn't mean Lazar's reactor works, but it does mean he named the correct atomic number years before its discovery. Was it a lucky guess, inside knowledge, or just coincidence? That question still lingers. Here's the scientific reality. Moscovium's isotopes are all short-lived. They decay almost instantly, which makes them useless for powering anything, let alone a gravity-warping drive. Lazar, however, claimed that a stable isotope of element 115 existed, something not yet discovered, that could provide the necessary conditions for sustained energy generation. To date, no stable isotope of moscovium has been found. Without it, the core of his story remains speculative at best. And then there's the physics problem. Gravity is one of the four fundamental forces of nature, and the least understood. Theoretical physics has explored ideas of gravitons, quantum fields, and even ways gravity might interact with higher dimensions. But no peer-reviewed technology has ever demonstrated gravity control on a macroscopic scale. Engineers can't just turn down the mass of an object. There's no evidence of a device that can create localized distortions of space-time to make craft zip around without inertia. Extraordinary claims, as Carl Sagan once said, demand extraordinary evidence, and so far, the evidence hasn't appeared. Still, Lazar's narrative refuses to die. Some argue that he described the culture and layout of Area 51 with uncanny accuracy at a time when the US government denied the base even existed. Others insist his story is just a carefully built hoax, a myth that survives because it taps into the hunger for answers about UFOs and secrecy. But what makes the Buga Sphere so provocative is how its reported features, smooth, seamless construction, layered internals, and a basketball-sized design, seem to mirror elements of Lazar's story. Not in every way, but enough to stir debate. But what if the Buga Sphere's form, not its fuel, echoes the seamless, integrated look Lazar described? Seamless shells and hidden guts. When the Buga Sphere was first shown to the public, the most striking detail wasn't what it did, it was what it didn't have. No welds, no rivets, no visible seams. A flawless metallic skin, smooth as glass, wrapped around the object. To the untrained eye, that might sound like definitive proof of something otherworldly. After all, every human-made device leaves behind fingerprints of construction, machine marks, fastening points, the scars of heat and pressure. But to engineers, seamless doesn't automatically mean alien. There are advanced techniques in metallurgy and manufacturing that can mimic this effect. Powder metallurgy, for example, can form dense shapes that appear continuous. High-precision forging and isostatic pressing can yield components without obvious joints. Even aerospace companies have experimented with single-piece titanium and aluminum shells to reduce stress fractures. But there's a difference between producing a seamless part for an airplane wing and producing a perfectly spherical, multi-layered orb with hidden internal components. That level of integration pushes the limits of known fabrication methods, at least those available outside top-tier defense labs. The mystery deepened when outlets reported the results of X-ray scans. According to researcher José Luis Velázquez, the images revealed 3 distinct layers within the sphere, like concentric shells. Nestled at the center were 9 small microspheres, arranged in what appeared to be a precise geometric pattern. This wasn't empty, hollow space. This was design, if the reports hold true. But that's the key. So far, all we have are claims. No raw X-ray images have been released for peer review. No independent labs have confirmed the structure. Until such scans are made public and methods are transparent, we're left relying on second-hand descriptions. That gap in evidence matters, because history has seen this movie before. In 1974, the Betts family of Florida discovered a strange metallic ball after a brush fire scorched their property. The Betts sphere, as it became known, was seamless, about the size of a bowling ball, and appeared to move on its own when placed on flat surfaces. Stories circulated of vibrations, humming sounds, and even directional changes, as if it had a mind of its own. The Navy got involved. Media swarmed. For a time, people whispered it might be alien technology. But as the excitement cooled, the Betts sphere lost its aura. Investigations suggested it was likely a piece of industrial equipment, possibly a ball check valve used in pipelines or machinery. The strange movements could be explained by irregularities in its shape and the surfaces it rolled on. In short, a mystery object with dramatic claims ended up having a mundane explanation. The cautionary tale is clear. Appearances can deceive, and pattern matching with expectations, whether alien or advanced, can lead us astray. That doesn't mean the Buga Sphere is destined for the same fate. It simply means we can't leap to conclusions without rigorous verification. If it is truly seamless, beyond the capability of today's metal forming, metallographic analysis, examining the grain structure under a microscope will reveal how it was made. If the X-ray data about 3 layers and 9 internal spheres is accurate, confirmatory scans from multiple labs would establish that beyond doubt. And if the internal arrangement turns out to be random or consistent with known industrial parts, then the extraordinary narrative collapses. If Buga is different from Betz, materials and machining signatures will prove it. So what would a global pattern of similar orbs tell us? The metallic orbs pattern. The Buga Sphere isn't the only orb drawing attention. In fact, the object seems to fit into a larger pattern that's been creeping into the official record. For years, pilots, soldiers, and even civilians have described spherical UAPs, objects with no wings, no tails, no obvious propulsion, moving in ways that don't square with known technology. What was once dismissed as anecdotal chatter began to shift in 2023 when the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, went public with its own footage. One of the most widely discussed clips showed a metallic orb zipping over the Middle East. The video was grainy but unmistakable. A round object, reflective, moving steadily across the sky with no contrail or propulsion signature. Officials admitted they couldn't explain it, at least not yet. Crucially, though, they didn't label it alien. AARO's language was careful. Unidentified doesn't mean unexplainable. The takeaway was that such orbs are real observations, tracked by military sensors, but their origins remain unresolved. That admission alone gave credibility to the recurring reports. Then came the so-called Mosul orb. Footage allegedly captured by a U.S. military drone in Iraq in 2016 shows a metallic sphere gliding across the screen. The provenance of the video has been debated, with some outlets treating it as leaked evidence and others questioning its authenticity. Still, the imagery echoed the same motif: a smooth, spherical object with controlled flight, appearing where it shouldn't be. Similar footage has trickled out of conflict zones, reinforcing the impression that these orbs are more than isolated incidents. It doesn't stop there. Commercial airline pilots over Europe have filed reports of glowing orbs pacing their aircraft, sometimes for minutes at a time, matching speed and altitude with eerie precision. In South America, witnesses from Argentina to Mexico have described metallic spheres hovering silently before darting away. In nearly every region, the details overlap: spherical shape, smooth exterior, unusual motion, absence of propulsion. Even decades-old reports, like the Betz sphere or Cold War-era sightings, now seem to fall into this repeating category. The big question is, what do these patterns actually mean? Repetition doesn't automatically equal alien technology. There are other explanations worth considering. Some experts argue that many of these sightings could be balloons or drones, reflecting light in ways that make them look metallic. Others suggest they might be sensor artifacts, anomalies created by cameras, radar, or infrared systems when data gets distorted. Under that lens, the orbs might not be objects at all, but quirks of the instruments watching them. Yet the consistency is hard to ignore. Different sensors in different places, operated by different people, continue to pick up similar targets. The more often it happens, the harder it becomes to wave it all away as coincidence. The unresolved Middle East orb, the Mosul video, the airline encounters all feed into the same narrative. spheres are a recurring feature of the UAP puzzle. What separates the Buga Sphere from these other cases is simple but critical. It's physical. Most orbs vanish without a trace, leaving only grainy video or puzzled witnesses. But Buga's orb reportedly left wreckage, or at least an object people could hold, scan, and test. If that claim holds, it changes the conversation. For the first time, one of these mysterious spheres isn't just a fleeting radar blip or a pixelated video clip. It's a real artifact. A pattern invites comparisons. So do Buga's rumored internals really track with Lazar's reactor story? Rumors versus lab reality. When the Buga Sphere hit the headlines, the wild claims came almost instantly. On forums, YouTube breakdowns, and even some tabloid-style articles, the story mutated into something far more extravagant than what was actually reported. Suddenly, the orb wasn't just seamless metal with odd internals. It was a shape-shifting, self-healing, weight-bending device straight out of science fiction. One viral rumor said the sphere's weight was unstable. Witnesses supposedly measured it at just a few pounds when it was first discovered, then over 20 pounds weeks later, as if it could adjust its own mass at will. Another claim insisted the orb's surface could heal itself, repairing scratches or blemishes within hours, returning to a flawless sheen as if nothing had touched it. Other stories spread about an internal network of fiber-like threads, supposedly advanced optical pathways for quantum communication. The most outlandish rumor of all claimed that isotopic analysis revealed prime number sequences encoded into the material itself, numbers that allegedly mapped to coordinates in the Zeta Reticuli star system, the same place Bob Lazar once named as the origin of alien craft. These details, dramatic as they sound, remain unverified. No peer-reviewed studies, no transparent data sets, no published results from recognized labs. What we have are whispers and viral storytelling, not evidence. And in the realm of extraordinary claims, that difference is everything. Until raw data, methods, and reproducible results are shared, these should be treated as exactly what they are: rumors. So what do we actually know? Strip away the speculation, and the facts on record are surprisingly narrow. Researchers, including José Luis Velázquez, have stated that the sphere appears seamless, with no visible welds or joints. X-ray imaging, according to their accounts, showed 3 concentric layers of material and 9 smaller microspheres within. That's it. Those are the clearest details reported in mainstream coverage. Alongside those statements came sober reminders from experts like physicist Julia Mossbridge. Without rigorous third-party testing, everything else is interpretation, not conclusion. And that's where the path forward becomes crucial. If this sphere is going to move from mystery into science, there's a very clear checklist for what must happen next. First, a secure chain of custody needs to be established. Who found the sphere, who handled it, and how was it stored? Without that record, contamination or tampering can never be ruled out. Second, surface and cross-sectional analysis, scanning electron microscopy, combined with energy dispersive spectroscopy, SEM/EDS, would reveal the microstructure and elemental makeup of the outer shell. Third, isotopic analysis using inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry, ICP-MS, could determine whether the sphere's material matches terrestrial sources or shows anomalies that hint at unusual origins. Fourth, computed tomography, CT, scans at multiple energies should be repeated, ideally by different labs, to confirm whether the layers and microspheres are real and not artifacts of the imaging process. Fifth, hardness tests and microstructural analysis could clarify whether the material was industrially produced or exhibits properties beyond conventional metallurgy. Sixth, magnetic and electromagnetic surveys could determine if the sphere generates unusual fields or interacts with its environment in unexpected ways. Finally, environmental assays at the impact site could show whether the orb caused measurable changes to soil, plants, or radiation levels. Each of these steps is standard science. None require exotic technology, just open methods, transparent results, and independent replication. That's how mysteries are solved, and that's how bold claims are validated or debunked. Of course, the allure of the rumors is strong. A self-healing surface, a device that changes its own weight, encoded coordinates to a distant star system. Those are the kinds of details that capture imaginations and go viral. But imagination isn't evidence. Science doesn't advance on whispers. It advances on data, repeated, tested, confirmed. Suppose those tests return non-standard alloys or unusual isotopes. What would that change for science, energy, and flight? If it's exotic, then what? Let's play out the scenario most people whisper about, but few dare put into plain words. What if the Buga Sphere isn't mundane? What if the rumors about mass manipulation, exotic isotopes, or even quantum communication aren't exaggerations, but measurable realities? If those tests return results that can't be explained by known metallurgy, then the implications go far beyond a curious artifact. They cut to the foundations of physics itself. Right now, gravity is the least understood of the fundamental forces. Electromagnetism can be tamed in wires and circuits. Nuclear forces are harnessed in reactors and weapons. But gravity, it remains stubborn, described by Einstein's equations, yet never manipulated in a laboratory beyond tiny tweaks at microscopic scales. If the Buga Sphere, or anything like it, demonstrates the ability to reduce its effective mass or bend gravitational fields, then our physics textbooks are missing entire chapters. It wouldn't just be an anomaly. It would demand new models, extensions of general relativity, or theories we haven't even written yet. The key, though, is repeatability. One demonstration, one lab's result, isn't enough. Science only advances when independent teams, working with transparent methods, can reproduce the effect. Without that, even the most spectacular claim collapses under scrutiny. Now imagine the leap if mass management proved real. Spaceflight, one of humanity's costliest and most dangerous endeavors, would transform overnight. Rockets today spend most of their energy just escaping Earth's gravity well, burning thousands of tons of fuel to push a few dozen tons into orbit. If a device could reduce a craft's effective mass by even a fraction, the entire equation changes. A ship wouldn't need to fight against Earth's pull in the same way. Launch costs could plummet. Deep space missions that once required years of planning and billions in resources could become routine. Trips to Mars might take weeks, not months. Voyages to the outer planets, or even interstellar probes, would move from speculation to possibility. The energy implications are just as staggering. A technology that manipulates gravity could open doors to energy sources we don't yet understand. Instead of relying on fossil fuels, nuclear fission, or even solar, we might harness entirely new forms of power. Imagine a generator that draws directly from the curvature of space-time, producing clean, limitless energy without emissions. That's the kind of breakthrough that could end energy scarcity forever. Climate change, resource wars, and dependence on fragile grids might vanish in the face of a new paradigm. But here's the flip side. Extraordinary possibilities invite extraordinary dangers. That's why caution matters. The history of UFO research is littered with overblown claims that discredited serious inquiry. Every time someone pushes too far, without evidence, the entire field takes a step back. Real scientists, real engineers, stop listening. That's why careful methodology, peer review, and transparency are more than academic rituals. They're the firewall between discovery and delusion. Groups like the Galileo Project or the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, SCU, exist for exactly this reason. They provide the framework for open analysis. Artifacts like the Buga Sphere, if genuine, should be in their hands, not locked away or passed around without oversight. That's how you separate hype from history. An open data repository with chain of custody records, raw scans, and published spectra would accelerate serious study far faster than secretive whispers or viral videos. And if rigorous testing rules out the extraordinary, there's still a story: who built it, and why the symbols and staging. What proof would look like? If we're going to move from rumor to result, from speculation to science, we need clear, repeatable proof. Start with the hardest link to swallow: Bob Lazar's reactor. For Lazar's claims to shift from anecdote into validated science, 3 ironclad conditions must be met. First, a stable heavy isotope must be identified, something that acts like fuel rather than a fleeting atom. Moscovium created in accelerators decays in milliseconds. That rules it out as a power source. If a stable isotope with the right properties exists, and if it can be isolated, measured, and shown to hold energy in a usable form, that would be a breakthrough beyond anything in current nuclear chemistry. Second, measurable gravitational effects must be demonstrated under controlled laboratory conditions. Not a single confusing field test, not a viral clip, but reproducible measurements. Force sensors, torsion balances, gravimeters, and interferometers showing consistent, quantifiable distortions that correlate with the device's operation. Third, engineering signatures must exceed known manufacturing capabilities. Grain structures, machining marks, microalloy compositions, and fabrication artifacts should point to processes not found in ordinary industry. If those 3 boxes are checked, Lazar's narrative moves from mythology toward engineering reality. Now, zoom in on the Buga Sphere. The burden of proof here is procedural and public. The minimum standard is transparency. Release the full CT scan stacks so other labs can reslice and reanalyze the internals. Publish raw spectral data from multiple instruments, including SEM/EDS, XRD, and ICP-MS outputs. Provide high-resolution imaging of any surface features, machine marks, tool signatures, or microware under optical microscopy and electron microscopy. Share isotopic ratio tables for each constituent element, with uncertainty estimates and instrument calibration logs. Crucially, document the chain of custody: timestamps, handlers, packaging conditions, and storage logs showing the object's path from field to lab. Finally, repeat all analyses in at least 2 independent accredited laboratories with no conflicts of interest. If both labs converge on the same findings, that is meaningful. If they diverge, publish both results and the methodological details so the community can resolve discrepancies. For the global picture, single videos and isolated finds are insufficient. We need cross-domain sensor fusion, radar returns matched to infrared signatures, optical imagery, and radio frequency monitoring, all synchronized and time-stamped. A true connection between a sighting and a recovered artifact requires that multi-sensor trail: a radar track that shows an object's path, an IR signature that confirms thermal behavior, optical footage that captures morphology, and then ground recovery that yields hardware with confirmed provenance. Each link must be documented and independently verifiable. That's how you turn anecdotes into data sets. There's also a standards playbook to adopt. Chains of custody should follow forensic best practices. Labs must publish raw data and processing scripts. Data repositories should be open by default, with embargoes only for legitimate legal or safety reasons. Independent peer review must be required before dramatic claims are amplified. And wherever possible, experiments must be designed for replication, clear protocols, control runs, and blind analyses to reduce bias. Why this rigor? Because the stakes are enormous. Confirmed exotic physics would rewrite textbooks and reshape geopolitics. False positives would wreck credibility and doom serious UAP science to ridicule. The community needs both caution and courage. Caution to demand evidence, courage to follow it where it leads. That means funding for real labs, international cooperation, and legal frameworks for artifacts that cross borders. The Buga Sphere sits at the edge of two worlds, mystery and measurement. Right now, it is a story told in interviews, headlines, and speculation. But with rigorous science, it could become something more. Either the case that rewrites our understanding of physics, or the solved riddle that reminds us why evidence always matters. Whichever way the tests fall, the lesson is the same. Truth thrives in the open. So keep asking questions, keep demanding proof, and don't settle for easy answers. If you want more deep dives into mysteries like this, hit subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and watch the next video queued on your screen. The story of the unknown is just beginning.